Hello and welcome to Christian Cultural Heritage Online. My name is Todd Brenneman. I'm a professor in the VP Black College of Biblical Studies, and I'll be your instructor for this course. In many respects, this course is very similar to the face-to-face course, the on-ground course, but what I wanted to do in this session was give a basic overview of the course, what we're going to be doing in this semester, and then also talk about some of the assignments, some of the requirements for the course, and highlight some things that are in the syllabus. I would encourage you to take the time to investigate the syllabus. We are not covering everything in this session, on this video, that is in the syllabus. And we're going to highlight some things, but for fuller information, I would encourage you to take a look at the syllabus. It's available on Blackboard under the syllabus. There are other policies there as well related to Faulkner University, as well as Faulkner taking a course through Faulkner Online. So let's talk a little bit about this course. One of the later videos in this course, in this session, we'll focus more heavily on Christian cultural heritage, what we mean by that phrase, some of the things that are important to recognize related to that phrase and that topic. But as we begin this session, I wanted to highlight some things because I get the impression, having taught the course on ground several times, spoken with other instructors who have taught the course, that a lot of students come into Christian cultural heritage not having a full understanding, sometimes not even having any sort of understanding about the course and what it entails and the subject material. You may have heard about some of the assignments and some of the requirements of the course, but often a lot of students just really don't have an idea about what this course is, because it's not like some of the other Bible courses that you've taken, in that, you know, if you're taking a course on the life of Christ or the book of Acts, if you're taking a course even on something like marriage and family, you have a general idea of what that course is going to cover in the name or in the topic. Even if you take, for example, a textual course, let's say the Epistle to the Romans, you know what the subject material is going to be, but a lot of students don't really have a grasp or an understanding of what Christian cultural heritage refers to. And even when you take a look at the course description, that too might not provide a lot of information regarding what subject material we're going to be covering. But as I said, we'll be talking about that in more detail in a later video. So here I just want to highlight some things. It's important to see that this course is meant to be kind of the capstone course in many respects to a variety of the different requirements that you've had to take here at Faulkner University. It is meant for someone who has already gone through all of their Bible courses, as well as the Western Cultural Heritage series at Faulkner. And so this course is kind of a capstone course to all of that, in that it's going to be tying together a variety of things that you have discussed and looked at that have served as the foundation for what we're looking at in this course. So it's meant to be kind of a continuation of those things, as well as building on the foundation of those elements. Specifically tying together a lot of the ways in which Christianity has been influenced, as well as has influenced the development of Western culture. Certainly Christianity has had a larger impact than just Western culture. And certainly if you are an international student, you may be coming from a country or a region that wouldn't necessarily be considered Western in its development. But the focus of this course is on the relationship between these two elements, Christianity and Western culture. which again is why it serves as the capstone towards a lot of what we have been looking at and talking about as you've looked at or as you've taken the other courses in those two series. Thirdly, it's also meant to incorporate a lot of what you have been doing in your major classes as you have been looking at a variety of the courses that you have taken in your major and are beginning to think about what it is you want to do with that major, what vocational goals you have. And so really what we're doing in this course is tying all of those things together to allow you the opportunity to do some spiritual, some philosophical integration of those things as you think about now, here you are completing or being close to completing your degree plan at Faulkner and thinking about, okay, where am I going from here? And so, tying together the spiritual component, the historical component in the Western Cultural Heritage series, and the American Cultural Heritage course, as well as your major, your professional literacy, and thinking about, how am I tying all of these things together? And as I think about where is it that I want to be in 5 years and 10 years, both in a career idea, but then also from the standpoint of being a Christian in that career. And so in many respects, we're tying together a lot of things to help you see these elements as being not distinct, different elements, but being closely intertwined and integrated with each other. And thinking about, especially, your life after graduation. In many respects, the goal here is for you to spend some time over the weeks of this course to think about, okay, I'm going into a business field, or I'm going into a science field, or I'm going into education. What does it mean then for me to be a Christian business person, a Christian scientist, a Christian educator? Now certainly you may be coming to this course without any sort of religious background as a Christian, maybe from a different religion or a non-religious background, but mostly students at Faulkner are going to be coming at this from a Christian standpoint. So even if you are coming from a non-Christian or even a non-religious standpoint, hopefully there will be something useful here for you to think about, maybe making your own goals and thinking about how your particular worldview lines up with those things, maybe taking the opportunity to investigate the Christian worldview more fully, think about that in a broader way perhaps than what you've done in some of your other courses. So in thinking about that, there are a couple of objectives that we're going to be trying to achieve in this course. At the end of the course, the successful student should be able to think through their strengths, their weaknesses, their opportunities, their challenges with respect to a lot of those goals that we've just talked about. And what is it that I want to be spiritually? Who is it I want to be spiritually? What do I want to be professionally? What kind of impact do I want to make on society? Thinking through how Faulkner and education at Faulkner in those elements, the Christian literacy, the cultural heritage literacy, professional literacy, how have those things prepared me? How have those things shaped me? What kind of guidance have they given me as I think about moving forward here past graduation? And so that is a very deeply personal, reflective type of approach in this goal, in this course. And so, part of this course is giving you the space to think about some of those things, to reflect on some of those things through an essay, through some of the readings, through some of the discussion boards, thinking about who am I, where am I going, who is it that I want to be. Another component of this course is also that at the end of the course you should be able to talk about the intertwining between the Christian worldview, American culture, Western culture in general, and thinking about how that has an impact on your field of study. Again, a lot of this is to encourage you to think or provide you some resources to think about what does it mean to be a Christian educator, a Christian business person, a Christian scientist. That's something more than saying something like, I'm going to be ethical. And that ties into that third point about thinking about a particular discipline and how it is applying in respect to Christian service. To get back to the point about ethics, an element we'll be looking at in this course, in many respects, probably a lot of people, when they think about what does it mean to be a Christian in business, education, science, in the arts, whatever your particular field, often the ethical is probably one of the first things they think about. Well, I'm going to be ethical in my dealings with people, or my dealings with subjects, or whatever it is I'm particularly involved in. And that certainly should be true. Christians should be ethical people, but there are important ways that there are some important things to think about in that a non-Christian religious person, and even an atheist, can also be ethical as a business person, as a scientist, as an educator. And so ethics, it can't be the sole way in which a Christian shapes her or his, what that means to be a business person, or an educator, or a scientist. Because, as I said, non-Christian people, non-religious people can be ethical as well. So certainly Christians should be ethical, but it's got to be more than that. There should be, in many respects, something distinctive. Now, that might be the reasons for wanting to go into a particular field, the way in which we see how a particular field fits in with the larger Christian worldview. It could be the end. What's my goal? What's my purpose in being an educator? What am I hoping to achieve out of this? What do I hope to achieve out of being a scientist? So there are a variety of ways that we can think about what it means to be a Christian in a particular field, and that I think ties into a lot of what the other components that we will be talking about in this course. So that's just kind of a overview of what we're hoping to achieve. Now, certainly it would be nice if at the end of the course I could say, can you do these things? And you say yes, and I trust you and say, okay, here's an A. But that's not necessarily the way things work. So there will be a variety of assignments, assessments that will be used to give you the opportunity to demonstrate your ability to do those things. There will be one exam in this course, a final exam given in week 6 that will cover the material in this course. There will be a study guide. We'll say more about that. There will be discussion posts each week completed on Blackboard that will be related to the material. Critical engagement essays asking you to think critically about a variety of topics, and then a reflective essay that is kind of a summary of a variety of those personal and individual types of goals. We'll say more about each of those here in a couple minutes. There are 3 textbooks for this course, and you should try to get those as soon as possible if you do not have them already. Because, especially for that last one, How Christianity Changed the World, you will be, by the end of the first week, submitting, or you're required to submit, a reflective essay off of something out of that book. So if you do not have it already, you need to get a copy of it. It is available electronically, so if it's kind of this is a last minute kind of thing, then I would say try to get it as soon as possible. But you will need all three of these textbooks. The Bible, of course, you probably already have a copy of the Bible. It does not matter which particular version of the Bible you use. You can use an electronic Bible, a physical book. That's not going to matter. All that matters is you having access to the Bible, being able to read some of the passages for the specific weeks. So make sure you have access to a Bible. The second textbook is Os Guinness's The Call, Finding and Fulfilling the Central Purpose of Your Life. The Call is more devotional in its organization. It is not necessarily an academic book. Hopefully, though, it will encourage you, you will be encouraged to reflect on some of the things there. So it should make you think, even though it's not strictly an academic book. The main focus of, there will be discussion questions from the call each week, getting you to think about some of the material in there. But mainly, I want you to use this to help you focus some ideas for that reflective essay. And so that's kind of the main purpose of that book, even though you'll be using it for discussion posts each week as well. And then that third book, as I mentioned, very important that you get that as soon as possible. Alvin Schmidt's How Christianity Changed the World. So Schmidt examines a variety of aspects of Western culture and traces out the ways in which Christianity influenced those particular aspects, whether that is thinking about something like freedom, the concept of freedom, if it's something like sexuality or gender roles, even down to things like hospitals and charities. And so that book, the focus will be on Schmidt trying to demonstrate the ways in which these elements of Western culture have been shaped by Christianity, the influence that Christianity has had. And so that will be a very important book to help shape our thinking. And it is predominantly the Schmidt book that you'll be writing your critical engagement essays on. And thinking about, does he have a convincing argument? If we accept what he says about how Christianity shaped, for example, charitable organizations or education, what does that mean for contemporary society? What does that mean for the Christian today? With respect to especially Schmidt, but in many respects, reading for this class is, especially in the Schmidt book, there are some important things to pay attention to. One of the things is that you should come to these works ready to engage it in a very critical way, in a very significant way, that is more than just a surface reading of the text. While I would certainly hope that you would have some sort of enjoyment or benefit upon reading these books, especially the Schmidt book, in many cases I recognize this isn't necessarily going to be something that you pick up for pleasure reading. And so this is going to be different than how you would read a fiction book. So I would encourage you to be prepared to take notes. Now, how you take notes is completely up to you. That could be, if you have a physical copy of the book that you plan on keeping, writing things in the margins, underlining, or doing something similar in an electronic copy, or actually physically writing something out on notebook paper, or keeping notes on an iPad or laptop. Right? However you do that, I want you to make sure that you are coming to these texts ready to make notes. Same thing would be true even with the biblical readings. The goal of our biblical readings is not necessarily for you to know the narrative of a variety of these texts. You know, for example, early on the first week, you'll be reading the first 3 chapters of Genesis. Well, those chapters, it's not meant for you to necessarily know, like, the order of creation, what was created on which day, or the particular events of that narrative. Maybe something you would have had to have done in Pentateuch. Instead, what we're looking for out of the biblical reading is for a greater understanding of certain principles. And so thinking about principles, what does this tell us? You know, what does this show us about how God thinks about, or how God created the world in these kind of principle types of ways? So be prepared to take notes. Again, however you do that is up to you, whatever's going to work best for you. But I would encourage you to not just kind of read through and, okay, I've done that reading and check that box. If you're really going to get something out of this class, you have to be ready to take some sort of notes so that you have that material. You can refer to that material. You can use that material for you know, whatever particular purposes we're using it for that week. For especially the Schmidt book, maybe more so than the call or biblical reading, you don't necessarily want to approach it in the sense of, you know, all right, I'm going to start at the beginning, I'm going to read straight through, and then I'm going to be done. Instead, for the Schmidt book especially, I would encourage you to take time to read some introductory paragraphs, read the conclusion paragraphs, pay attention to the headings, right? Get a general sense first of what's going on in this particular, let's say for Schmidt, this particular chapter. What is it that he's trying to communicate? And having done that, then I would say focus on, you know, trying to get the point of specific chunks of text. You know, the goal isn't here at the end of your reading homework time to say, okay, I've read every word, I started at the beginning, I got to the end, I'm done. No, instead it's to, you know, really learn something out of this. Really engage the text. This will be very, very helpful as you certainly prepare for those critical engagement essays, so that you can find something that you can say, okay, I completely understand what's going on here. You know, I've got this chunk. I'm going to, you know, and talk about it and analyze it. So, you know, it's not necessarily, you know, begin at the end, go through. You're going to begin at the beginning, go through the end, and be done. One read. But instead, really engage the text. Really get something out of it. And of course, you know, taking those notes is a very important part of this. Paying attention to definitions, lists, you know, if certain words are highlighted in italics or in bold text, those are the kind of things that are meant to kind of draw your attention to. Okay, there's something important going on, something significant going on. But then also think about asking questions of the text. You know, thinking about, you know, what it is that this author is saying. Again, particularly this is for the Schmidt book. You know, you read a section. Let's say, you know, you're reading you're reading the chapter on hospitals, for example. And so you read the first section on hospitals, and you say, you know, is this convincing to me? You know, has he proven his case? Is there something missing here? Is there, you know, maybe you have some knowledge about this history or something, and say, well, you didn't really talk about this aspect, so why might he not have brought this up? Right? So engage the text. Don't just kind of either, you know, engage in kind of a passive relationship with the text, but really engage it actively, because that's going to give you more significant understanding, is going to help you in writing those critical engagement essays, to think through some of these things instead of just kind of this passive reading of the text where you start at the beginning and ended up at the end. So reading for this class is probably going to be different than some other classes. You know, probably more along the lines of what you have, you know, hopefully done in some of your major classes as you've been learning the particular material of whatever class you've been taking. Let's turn now to going back to the assignments, the requirements, the assessment of objectives, some of the things that you're going to be doing in this course. With it being an online course, there will be a variety of videos that you will be required to watch/listen to each week. And there are several hours each week that you will be expected to watch. A lot of that content will come from me. A variety of lectures or overviews of subjects, much like this type of presentation where I'm providing you information and you're expected to kind of absorb that. Sometimes it will be material I've used for other courses that I've edited down and presented for this course. You know, just kind of save me some time. It's the material that I wanted you to know, especially for those videos that there might be a discussion of a particular assignment in some of those videos. Outside of this video, I would not concern yourself with any of the assignments talked about in videos, because it might have been something for a different class. So just pay attention to certain elements within our course. On Blackboard, there's a section called Course Content that is broken up into each week, and as you open the folder for each week, it will give you the list of assignments for that week. The videos to watch, discussion posts to make, essay to write, maybe a study guide as we get closer to the final. So just pay attention to that list of assignments. Do not worry yourself with assignments that might be talked about in some of the videos. So you'll have video content from me, some of which is specific for Christian cultural heritage, some of which I've brought in from like a world religions course or something like that. Additionally, there'll be content produced by others. We will be watching some videos from Michael Sandel, a professor of philosophy at Harvard. He taught a course. The entire course is available through YouTube. He's taught a course on justice, and there's some very important things that, some ideas and some things that he raises that I want you to engage with, and so that's why you know, I could communicate that material through video I produce, but you know, they're just done so well, and he's such an engaging presenter that I really wanted to give you the opportunity to experience that material through you know, watching his videos as opposed to, you know, repackaging some of the points that he makes. And then there will be other videos by other people. Some videos, for example, from N.T. Wright, a New Testament scholar from England. And so each week there will be several hours of video that you will need to watch, some of it from me, some of it from others, that you will be expected to engage with. Now, I want to say, certainly, that in the material that comes from other instructors, other professors, I am not presenting that material as things that I 100% agree with. Right? So please don't necessarily take it as everything within a certain video you can accept. Right? And instead, there's some larger points that are coming out of those videos that I want you to get. But certainly, I would expect you even to match up some of the things that I say with other information, with what the Bible teaches, certainly, in a variety of ways. But I don't want to say I completely 100% endorse every position that will be presented in all of these videos. Certainly the material I produce is one thing, but as far as any outside material that is produced, I want you to understand that I agree with a lot of what is being presented, or I support a lot of what is being presented, or I think that those videos raise some important questions that we need to think about. So there are a variety of ways in which we're going to interact with that material. And so I kind of want to preface that a little bit by saying, don't just blanketly accept something just because it's included in this course. There might be some material in the books or in the videos that that maybe wouldn't necessarily be 100% scripturally accurate or reflective of my particular position. All right. So having said that, what is one of the things that I want to make sure of is that you're engaging with that material. And so one of the things that you will need to do each week is provide a set of notes for the videos that you've watched for that week. Now, you can either submit your notes that covers everything, or you can submit a 500-word summary for each lecture or each particular video. Now, some of my material I will break up into 15 to 25-minute chunks. That way you can engage some of it in a smaller setting. Like, I only have like 20 minutes to watch material right now, so here's this little bit of a chunk. Now, certainly I can't do that with some of the material that's been produced by other content producers. The Michael Sandel lectures, for example. Some of those are, about an hour long. I can't set it up to break that down, right? Because that's how that material has been produced. So, you don't have to do one for each particular video, but often they're arranged in particular lectures. So, for example, when you get to week 3, there will be several videos on Islam. Right? So, in talking about Islam, I want you to kind of organize that material and present, a set of notes related to that. Right? And so, a set of notes related to the Michael Sandel lecture, the N.T. Wright lecture, and whatever else. If you have a particular question about this, how many sets of notes you need to submit, etc., feel free to contact with me. Feel free to communicate with me about that. I want to make sure that that's completely understood. But in doing that, you need to demonstrate that you have actually watched that material. So I don't want you to just copy the PowerPoint slides, for example, because this material is going to be useful for you in studying for the final exam. So if you just copy the PowerPoint bullet points, that's not going to give you enough material to study and succeed on the final exam. So make sure you're doing more than just copying down the PowerPoint slides. Certainly this first week, I'll look over the notes, try to provide you some guidelines, say you're on the right track, or maybe you need to include some more detail to help you figure out what it is that you should be doing in this respect to demonstrate that that you are engaging the material in the way that I think you should be. So you will want to submit those notes each week This is not something that you should get behind on. This is something that you need to do each week. And the links for submitting those notes are available on Blackboard under week 1, week 2, week 3, etc. There is a space that says submit, student note submission. The format that you submit it in is up to you. Some people would prefer to watch the video, take notes by hand. Perfectly fine. If you want to just take a picture of your notes and send me the picture, that's perfectly fine. That works fine. If you are watching the video and let's say like on a desktop computer, and you want to take notes on an iPad or a laptop or something like that, that's fine too. So the format is up to you. Whatever's going to work best for you to get the material down and that's going to be in a format that is useful to you. So the particular format doesn't matter. What I'm looking for is, has the student been watching these videos, engaging with this material, getting down the information that they need to get down so that they are prepared for the final exam, some of the other assignments that will be due. So that's largely what I'm looking for there. Right? Something more than just the PowerPoints that's going to be useful for the final exam. There will be one exam in this textbook, there'll be one exam in this course that will take place at the end of this course, the last week of the course. It will include multiple choice questions, short answer questions, essay questions. We'll cover material from the textbooks, lecture material, the videos. We'll be, maybe even draw something from the discussions or reflect things that we've talked about in the discussions. There will be a study guide provided at least 2 weeks prior to the exam that will help you get the material and help you focus on what to prepare for that exam. So there will just be the one exam at the course at the end of the session. Each week, you will need to submit an engagement essay, critical engagement essay. This is for weeks 1 through 5. And these will be based on readings from the Schmidt book, How Christianity Changed the World. Essentially what I'm looking for you to do is to find a particular idea in one of those chapters. Each week you'll be reading several chapters. You need to pick something from one particular chapter and just one particular idea and briefly summarize the idea. Right? Let's say something to do with hospitals. Right? You're reading a chapter on the hospitals. And summarize what Schmidt says about how Christianity influenced hospitals. And then in the second half of the paper, kind of engage that essay, that particular idea. So what should that tell us about, Christianity in the modern world? What does that tell us about, how, what is it that is significant about this? What are the consequences of accepting it? What does this tell us about contemporary culture? Why is this an important point to know? Any of those questions. And these are highlighted in the assignment as you read through the assignment of what I'm looking for on Blackboard. You don't have to answer all of those questions, but finding one particular question. All right, so here's what Schmidt says about hospitals. What does that tell us about Christianity today? Or what ways do Christians today continue this aspect that led to the creation of hospitals, or what ways have Christians kind of abandoned that concern? Right? And really kind of engaging the idea, not just summarizing what Schmidt says, but really thinking about, what are some of the things, what are some of the ideas that are connected with this? So Each week, 500 word essay. Picking that one idea, describing that idea, answering those questions. Again, you don't have to answer all of those questions, but really trying to engage what Schmidt is saying. Again, it's only 500 words, which is about 2 to 3 pages, double-spaced, so it shouldn't take you a very long time to write the paper. I would encourage you to, as you kind of get it, reword it and revise it and some of those things, but the actual kind of the paper itself is not a very long paper, but that 500 words is a minimum. Right? You can certainly go more than 500 words, but it has to be at least 500 words, so about 2 to 3 pages, double-spaced, every week for the first 5 weeks. So there won't be anything, there won't be a critical engagement essay due in week 6. There will be other material due in week 6, and so that's why you're not having to do the critical engagement essay. The last major assignment in the course is the reflective essay. Due towards the end of the semester, or the end of the session, I guess might be a better way to put it, since we're only doing 6 weeks. It'll be due in week 6. It is 1,500 words minimum, and essentially the excuse me, the idea behind the reflective essay is to engage and get you to think about your past. What are some elements that have influenced you from your past, kind of reflecting on where you are now, and then also thinking about your spiritual goals, your academic goals perhaps, your vocational goals, emotional goals, psychological goals. There are a variety of things that you could kind of directions you can go. But specifically, this essay is meant to try and provide you the opportunity to reflect on your worldview, and we'll talk about what a worldview is, and thinking about what your worldview is, as well as thinking about your career. Where are you going in your career, and some of the things that you will want to incorporate in in your day-to-day life. What kind of spiritual goals you have, etc. Right, so integration of worldview and career. The guidelines for that, as well as the grading rubric, are available on Blackboard, and so I would encourage you to spend some time looking that over. A very important assignment in this course. I just realized that I did not include a slide about the discussion posts. So I would encourage you to spend some time on the syllabus looking through that information. But basically, there are, beginning in week 2, you are going to be required to comment or respond to a variety of questions that I have developed related to the material that we're looking at that week. And, well, week 1, you only needed to do 2 discussion posts. Week 6, you will only need to do 2 discussion posts. Weeks 2 through 5, you will need to do 4. The first post must be completed by Wednesday before midnight, and then the rest of the material needs to be completed before the end of the week. Each of your first 4 posts have to be substantial posts of at least 100 words, engaging the questions that I've presented for a particular week's topic. After posting responses to the questions that I've asked, then you must also respond to at least 4 other posts, whether from classmates or maybe maybe you'll respond to one of my questions and they'll have another question. right? And you can respond to that. But you need to do 4 other posts related to that are responding to your classmates' discussion. So in most weeks you're going to be posting 8 times. Again, we're doing a 6-week course, so it's going to be a lot of material in a very short amount of time. Again, I would encourage you to spend more time with the syllabus on this. So the first 4 posts in response to my questions will be graded out of 10 points. The responses to other students or to additional material that I put up are they don't count for any points, but if you do not do them, you will lose points. So the first 4 get points, the second 4, if you do not do them, you lose points. All right? So they don't gain you any points, but if you don't do them, then you lose points. So, make sure to be doing those, reading the material that is in the syllabus about that. And those posts have to be more than "I agree," "me too," "great thought." Right? They have to be something significant. The grading breakdown. Each of the major assignments, excuse me, every week will count for a certain number of points. The engagement, that refers to the notes that you're submitting on the lectures. The other videos you're watching, that's 200 points. The discussion posts are 200 points. The final exam is going to be out of 200 points. Each of the essays, the total of all the essays will be 200 points. And then the reflective essays out of 200 points. And so it's out of a total of 1,000 points. Doing it this way, of course, makes it easy to kind of figure out where you are. You're kind of adding up the points that you have at any particular point, thinking about, okay, so I want to get an A in this course, so I need at least 900 points. So where am I now? What do I need to get to? Right? Addition and subtraction, you don't have to figure out percentages, those kind of things. So each of the major assignments out of 200 points, a total of 1,000 points for the semester. That means, certain things like individual discussion posts. If let's say there's 4 lectures you have to watch in a particular week and you only do notes on 3. Well, that's not going to destroy your grade. If you forget to do a discussion post, that's not going to destroy your grade. Even if you do poorly on one of the critical engagement essays, that's not going to destroy your grade. Now, obviously, if these things add up, it's going to have a significant impact on your grade. But each individual little piece isn't necessarily going to entirely destroy your grade. But make sure that you keep up with this material. This course will go very, 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 very quickly. And there is a lot of material to cover in a very short amount of time. So I would encourage you to make sure to keep up each week with the different assignments. And as I mentioned, under course content, each week I've broken out for you the videos that you need to watch, right? A link to the playlist, the discussion post link, maybe the critical exam link, the week that we have the reflective essay, the submission for your notes, right? All of that is under those folders under course content. So, course content is going to be one of the places that will be the most useful for you in thinking about each week what is needed. Talked about the grading scale a little bit. That gives you an idea of the breakdown, where you need to get to for the grade that you would like to receive in a course. Each week, of course, there are a variety of assignments, and I'll try to keep up as much as I can with the grading. My policy is to get graded material back to you within a week after it being due. Often it's a lot more quickly than that. But once I've turned an assignment back to you, let's say turned a critical engagement essay back to you, you will have, and this is university policy, you have 3 days if you have a concern about how something is graded and you would like it regraded, believing that I've made some sort of mistake. So I submit the essay back to you and say, okay, you got a C on this essay. Here are the reasons that you got the C. Right? You didn't include this material, or you didn't develop this idea. Right? You say, well, no, I really did that. I think you misunderstood. Right? Well, get in contact with me. Send me an email and say, you know, after looking at my grade, I noticed that you did not understand. I believe you did not understand what I was saying in this particular paragraph. I'll take a look at it, re-examine it, grade it fairly, and say, okay, you're right, and so I've adjusted the grade, or no, I see what you were saying, but you still did not include X, Y, Z, and this is why you got the grade you got. There are certainly other opportunities for appeal after that, but the university policy is 3 days after a graded assignment has been returned. So keep up with those assignments, keep up with those grades. I'll provide information for the critical engagement essays about how to improve if necessary. I mean, if you do a fantastic job, then it might just be me saying, great job, right? Keep doing what you're doing. But if there's some things that I say, well, you do a really good job summarizing, but you don't really engage the issue, right? And so ask yourself these questions, right? So I'll try to provide you that kind of feedback so that, the next time something is due, you can, you can be better prepared. And so, like I said, my policy is within a week, but I know we go very fast. And so once that first essay is done, you only have a couple days before the next one's due. And so I'll try to turn around pretty quickly so that, if that first essay you just summarize and you don't engage, I can tell you that. So you can say, oh, okay, I need to do more of that in this second essay. So, I'll try to, do that as quickly as possible. But, I am a human being, so, if I make a mistake, or you think that I need to grade something, or if you think that I didn't grade something fairly, by all means get in touch with me about that, so I can make sure to grade it fairly and grade it grade it fully. With respect to that, if something comes up where you will need an extension, please get in contact with me about that. In most cases, I will not accept late discussion posts, late notes, other things like that. Essays can be turned in up to 2 days late. You will receive a letter grade reduction for each day it's late, and after 2 days, I will not grade it. It'll be an F, a 0. If something comes up, get in contact with me. Right? A variety of family issues can come up, all sorts of things. And so if you get in contact with me before something is due, or as soon as possible when something comes up, there probably be opportunities for us to make some arrangements. So if a situation comes up, please get in contact with me about that. But in general, my policy is, once the due date passes, then that's it, except for essays which can be turned in up to 2 days late with a grade reduction. Right? So if something does come up, please get in contact with me about it as it's coming up, and don't wait until the end of the semester to say, well, work got too bad, or this happened or that happened. Well, had you talked to me about it 3 or 4 weeks ago, we could have made arrangements, right? So it's better to get in contact with me earlier when there's an opportunity to make some adjustments, especially in the time frame that we're talking about. Excuse me. I want to highlight, of course, academic honesty. There are discussion posts in this course. There are essays in this course. Some of those critical engagement essays, some of those are reflective essays. There are a couple of things to keep in mind. Of course, it's very important that you are academically honest in presenting any of the assignments that you submit. So, do not use someone else's work as your own. What I'm looking for, all you need in this course is the material I provide, the textbooks, and your brain. There are no research assignments. There are no assignments that are going to require you to engage any other material other than what I provide through lectures or links or through the textbooks. So please do not use someone else's work as your own. If you're having a problem understanding something, instead of Googling it, instead of doing some sort of search to try and find ways to talk about something, get in contact with me. Let's work together to help you understand what it is you're having difficulty with, to help you think through what you want to write about. Please do not take someone else's work and present it to me as your own. All right? So I don't want you to pull up a review of Schmidt's book and submit that as an essay. I don't want you to have cut and pasted something from somebody else, a website, or someone else's paper. Don't submit someone else's work and claim that you're the one that wrote it. As I said, you do not need any outside sources. But if, for some reason, you use some sort of outside source, whether that's in a discussion post, whether that's in a critical engagement essay, make sure that you give them credit. Make sure that you cite that work properly. To do anything less would be plagiarism, and that is an academic offense, and we'd have to involve the dean of students. So if you use someone else's work, make sure that you give them credit for that work, saying, I got this material from this particular website or this particular book. Right? If you are unsure how to cite something, get in contact with me. Please, let me know what I can do to help you in these assignments. I want to see you succeed, but I want to see you do your work. I want to see what you can do, not what someone else can do. Don't use someone else to complete assignments if you haven't cleared it with me. In most cases, collaboration will occur through discussion posts, but I'm looking for you to do your own work in what you have to say in the discussion post, your engagement of the works, your reflection on your goals. Right? So, the focus here is on what you can do, not what someone else can help you do. So do your best work. Do your best work. That's going to be the thing that I'm looking for. I want to see what you can do. If you are using someone else's work, make sure to cite it appropriately. At the very, very least, if you don't know how to cite something, give me some sort of indication. I got this from a website, right? Here's the address for the website. If you're not sure how to cite something, please let me know. I'd be more than willing to help you figure that out, talk about whether you need to cite it, etc. Above all, do whatever it takes to keep your integrity. I want you to be able to say, by the time you finish this course, and really by the time you finished your work at Faulkner, that no matter what you receive, no matter what grade you receive, that you can honestly say, I did my best work. No one else did this for me. I did not lie. I did not misrepresent. I did not hedge. Right? That this is the work that I did, and I feel comfortable because I did my best and didn't steal, take, plagiarize, cheat. At the end of the day, that is vitally more important than the letter grade you receive, is that you can feel confident that you did your work, that you were a person of integrity in how you presented your work.